Welcome back to Counterpoint. We're discussing housing and how that's impacting Canadians. Low supply, high cost, of course, high mortgage rates. And joining me again in studio is David Clement, North American Affairs Manager for the Consumer Choice Center. David, thanks again for jumping on here. So we went through the kind of the precursor issues to COVID and what was going on, low housing supply,
hmm
pretty much since the mid 2010, so 2014 onward. Uh, how then post COVID, especially, we keep hearing high inflation, how does that impact mortgage rates? Explain to our viewers.
Yeah, so what we have right now is anyone on a variable rate mortgage has seen their monthly mortgage costs go up over the last year and a half or so since rates started going up. And for a lot of those people, it's caused a lot of pain
Mm,
because you, in theory, think that your mortgage is a steady expense, something you can budget for. But what happens if you have the average home and the average mortgage in, let's say, Ontario, you're looking at $800,000. Going up fractions of a percent may not sound like a lot, but when it adds a couple $100 to your mortgage every quarter, very soon at the end of the year, you're now spending $1,000, $1,100 more on mortgage payments for the same house in comparison to maybe when you first bought it. And that takes away a lot of disposable income.
right.
It eats away at the ability to save for things like retirement. So you have a situation now where in a lot of major Canadian cities, you have homeowners spending 50, 60, 65% of their disposable income on housing.
Wow. And
Um,
usually the healthy mark or the benchmark was about a third.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that has exceeded what is the norm.
Wow.
And yeah, the spillover consequences for that are enormous.
So I didn't buy during COVID. I bought a few years before. Well, moved out of the city. But
Mhm.
what would compel someone? I'm just trying to get through the reasoning here. In a time when there's such low mortgage rates, to sign a variable mortgage, like why would someone do that?
Uh, For a lot of people, it was the only way to qualify,
Oh, okay.
or they got bad advice. Anyone who could have qualified for a fixed rate mortgage or that at historic lows, right? Remember that the historical average is about where we are now.
Right.
So interest rates have gone up quicker than we've seen in recent history, but the actual interest, the Bank of Canada's rate now is about the average. So anyone who was giving that advice to get a variable rate mortgage when you could have got a fixed mortgage gave terrible advice. But for many people, it was the only way that they could qualify.
And since then, the government has introduced new stress tests or new benchmarks for
Yes,
qualifying.
yeah. There are stress tests, and anything over $1 million requires 20% down,
Hmm.
and that may reduce some risk, but it also keeps a lot of people out of the housing market entirely
Right.
because the down payment for a house at 999,999 is 75,000. At 1 million, it's 200, and you have to be able to save $200,000. And in this economy, and with wage growth where it is, this scenario of saving $200,000 is not impossible, but near impossible.
Oh, it's well, like you mentioned in the previous segment, income rates just simply haven't kept
Mhm.
up with the cost of housing.
Yeah.
Um, we know, as you mentioned, that a lot of Canadians did purchase during COVID
hmm
when, again, historic lows for interest rates. Some are in variable, some may have just taken the easy 3-year fixed rate.
hmm
They're coming up for renewal next year in
Yeah.
2024, rather this year. Uh, what's going to happen? Are we going to see foreclosures in this country? That seems like such an American
Yeah.
thing circa 2008, but is that what we can expect?
I don't think on primary residence we're going to see a foreclosure apocalypse, but on the investor side, anything that's rented, so landlords, where their debt servicing costs will far exceed what market rent is.
Right.
And in that instance, you have to sell. And when you have a bunch of those units up for sale, that puts some downward pressure on prices. We're not at a place where I think Canadians en masse who are renewing are going to be in 2008 level trouble. It's about a 15 to 24% or so increase on average.
Okay.
Um, Many families can stomach that, but they have to cut a lot,
Yes.
right? They have to cut a lot in terms of where they're spending their disposable income.
And it's painful.
Very, very. We're talking everything from kid after school programs to the sports they play to where you shop for groceries
Hmm.
to can you go on vacation? Can we afford a second vehicle even if it's needed? All of those big family
Right.
questions will have to get pushed aside in order to stomach that increase.
Yeah, I think, we hope that there won't be many foreclosures, or that Canadians are
Hmm.
still going to be able to absorb it. I guess time will tell. We'll have to see what happens when it's coming up now this season, with a lot of people starting to renew. Anyhow, we'll be back on this topic in just a few moments. Please stick around.